everyone, my name is Ryan Cam, and welcome to my review for Bad Boys for Life. This was directed by these two guys, with names that I'm not even going to try to pronounce, and it is the third Bad Boys movie in the Bad Boys Now trilogy. The Bad Boys are back, played by Will Smith and Martin Lawrence respectively. They reunite for seemingly one last ride when a string of murders hits Miami, with the killer being linked to our boys in a very personal way. I've been very ambivalent towards the Bad Boys movies. I remember seeing the first one about 5 years ago, and I remember liking it. And I've never seen Bad Boys 2. The only thing I've seen of it is that famous clip where Smith and Lawrence dress down the teenager who's about to date Martin Lawrence's daughter. But other than that, haven't seen it. Though from the reviews I've read and the reviews I've watched suggest that I probably won't like it that much. I'll probably watch it one day, but for now I'm just going to say I haven't seen it with the exception of that one clip. But the difference between Bad Boys 1 and 2 and Bad Boys for Life is that it is not directed by Michael Bay. It's directed by these two guys. And it really does tell a difference, because I thought Bad Boys for Life was a very pleasant surprise. It wasn't perfect, I did have problems with it, but on the whole, as someone who has never been a humongous fan of the Bad Boys movies, I walked out of this one very happy. Firstly, we gotta talk about the chemistry between Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, because it is so good. They both can pull off the serious moments, but they also make fun of each other, and it's all great. That's the sign of a true friend, when you can bust their balls and give them a shoulder to cry on at the same time. But also in this movie, you have this new team in the Miami PD that's called Ammo, and when I first saw them, I was like, oh boy, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are going to be great, and they're going to be crap. But thankfully, they weren't. They were actually pretty enjoyable. All of them. One of them was Vanessa Hudgens, and that's never a bad thing. I also really liked the action scenes in the movie. Everything was framed up well, and everything looked solid across the board. Our two directors did a really great job of imitating Bay's style while eliminating a lot of his more troublesome aspects. Kind of like stevia, all the flavor of sugar but with none of the side effects that come with it. But in terms of negatives, I think the biggest negative that I have with the movie is the story does kind of get a little ahead of itself. Now, to be fair, the story in the movie is pretty solid. Like I said, without spoiling anything, the killer in the movie has a personal connection to the Bad Boys in some way, and the movie does its due diligence to explain this in a way that can be easily understood while getting the maximum emotion out of it. I like that. I like the spirit of it, because with most Michael Bay movies, emotion is not handled very well. But with that though, some of the emotion just kind of bogged the movie down at points, where it was like, how long have we been harping on this? Like, when are we going to get back to the action? Thankfully, the action was just around the corner, but there were some moments where it was like, okay, let's get back to shooting stuff. And thankfully, it wasn't far ahead. And some of the humor just really didn't resonate with me. Now, don't get me wrong, this movie is very funny. The funniest scene in the movie is when Will Smith shoots one of the bad guys in the head with this rubber bullet. It ricochets off this dude's head, it knocks him off his motorcycle, and Smith and Lawrence walk over to him, he's on the ground, and he has this wound on his head that looks like the size of an avocado. And Lawrence is like, I don't want to touch it, but I want to. And Smith is like, don't you touch it, man. And he's like, I'm going to touch it. And Lawrence actually touches it. And I shouldn't have laughed. I shouldn't have laughed at that as hard as I did. But I did. I actually feel guilty about that, but there we are. But I felt like some of the humor just tried to put a stint on some of the emotional moments, especially in the climax. Again, no spoilers, but basically this revelation is coming about and there's Martin Lawrence trying to drop one-liners, and I'm like, Lawrence, now is not the time. We're trying to have a moment, just keep it to yourself for 5 seconds. But at the end of the day, Bad Boys for Life was pretty great. This made me want to watch the other 2 Bad Boys movies and see if one was as good as I remember it being, and if 2 was any good to begin with, because I liked this movie that much. But at the end of the day, I walked out of this movie more satisfied than I did The Rise of Skywalker. I'm just going to leave that out in the universe. But that is all for me, guys. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Look forward to my reviews for Wonder Woman and Justice League, continuing in my DCEU series. And tomorrow I will be seeing Dolittle. And I have a feeling this January is going to take a turn for the worse. Because, honestly, this is one of the better Januaries, at least from my perspective, that I've sat through in a while. Because I've gotten Bad Boys for Life, 1917, and Just Mercy. And I know 2 of those are technically 2019 movies, but they were released wide in 2020. However, Dolittle just doesn't look good. Like, not at all. But my name is Ryan Cam, and I'll see you in the next one.